All right, we're going to fire it back up. Did you guys hear my talk just a few minutes ago? All right, woo! Are you guys ready to take a deep dive and really go on this journey? Yeah, I am absolutely so excited to really build this army. You know, I had a vision of this day. I literally saw this day for years and years and years. I could see this shift happening. And I think that it happened at the right time, you know, a serendipitous time in my life, and Lauren being led into my life, and now leading me to you guys. But guys, we are really going to change the world. I truly believe that, and I'm really excited about that. I know that last time that QR code didn't work. I'm going to actually go through this a little bit and go back. I want you to remember that is free, so please, you either go to www.theultimatehuman.com/VIP, or just click that URL and put in shop, because it's not going to cost you anything for this first month. And that's where we're going to start, because I am not only going to message to you today, but I'm going to start messaging to this group, educating and inspiring this group so you can educate and inspire the masses. We're going to start healing people in this group the way that we were meant to heal, and walking people out of the conditions that they have so that you can see it in real time. What tests did we run? What supplements did we take? What recommendations did we do? What diet did we put them on? And then what was the results? So we can't hide from it, right? There's nothing more authentic than bringing somebody up out of the crowd onto a virtual stage and saying, hey, here's Beverly from Ohio. And she was diagnosed 10 years ago with Crohn's disease. And we're going to walk her from having Crohn's disease into the possibility of putting this in her rearview mirror. And we're going to do this over and over and over again as a community. And we're going to do, like I said, we're going to use what God gave us, right? Not what man makes of us. It's very simple. So please join me on this journey. If you don't want to continue after a month, that's great. But join me on this journey at least this month. All right. What's that? Pick me now. Yeah. People are like, I'm really messed up. You know, I want to be your first case. If you can fix me, you can fix anything. So I want to just go back to our previous discussion where we talked about the basics. Some of you that have been, following me on Instagram, or even already a part of my VIP community, you've participated in some of my challenges. You know, every month I do a new challenge, and the reason why I construct these challenges and I do them for free, because I want to show people the astounding results you can get when you actually just tap in to the beauty of the human body, and we use it to start healing ourselves, and we actually use it to bring out the ultimate human inside of every single one of us in this room. And we use the power of water fasting. You know, I did a 10,000 step challenge, and to get people to actually start paying attention to their steps, I brought Jelly Roll onto the challenge. How many of you like country music? Yeah, Jelly's, I'm a huge fan of his. He's a huge fan of mine. In fact, I'll be doing a podcast with him. My wife can tell me when. I think it's next month. We're going to his concert. We're going to run a podcast. I remember when I met him January of last year, my wife and I flew on his plane from LA to Las Vegas, and he began to describe to me, for the first time someone in his position had ever done this, what it was like to go through a day being trapped in a body that was 510 pounds. And it was the first time that somebody actually described to me what it was like to be entombed inside of their own skin. And he would tell me that he didn't like stopping at traffic lights, because if the radio wasn't on, he could hear himself wheeze. And it took him 45 minutes to wake up in the morning because he had so many pounds of extra weight on top of him that if he actually rolled over onto his back, he would suffocate. And these are all things that he said in the public domain. He said these on podcasts. I would never disclose something about a client that wasn't out there. And my heart just broke for him. So I said, Jelly, what if I make you my next superhuman project? And I promise you 100 pounds by October. And you promise me, you promise me that if I take 100 pounds off of you by October, you will walk your first 5K. And if you walk your first 5K, you'll invite the world to walk it with you. And he said, done, baby. You know how he is. You're Brecka, baby. You know, he's a maniac. So he was down 100 pounds by October. He walked his first 5K. He's down another 55 pounds since then. And we're going to use his message to inspire the world. You see, we're just not as sick or diseased or as pathological as we've been led to believe, right? We are nutrient deficient. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say that one of the things that's interesting about looking at blue zone studies and longevity, what's making people live the longest lifespans on Earth? What's very fascinating is it's not a dogmatic diet. Right, if you study the blue zones, you'd see that it's not keto, paleo, pescatarian, vegan, vegetarian, raw food diet. It's not one of the dogmatic diets, because if you go to Sardinia, that's the highest carbohydrate consumption in the world. They have one of the longest life expectancies. You wander over to the Mediterranean, and they're eating very, very high fatty fish and lots of oils. One of the longest life expectancies. You go to Singapore, highest meat consumption per capita in the world, and one of the longest life expectancies. And then the French, kind of screwing up the whole formula because they're smoking cigarettes and eating cheese and they're living, drinking wine, and they're living to 120, right? So the hell with the French, right? they're like that one, we call them a statistical outlier. But the important point was, the one common theme wasn't the dogmatic diet. It was that all of those diets were whole foods. You see, wasn't in any of those diets were highly processed foods. That makes up 66% of our diet. It makes up almost 70% of the diets of our children, our prepubescent children in this country. Our public school system is broken. Our nutritional system in the public school system is broken even worse. We've sucked out physical education and we've replaced it with inclusion and studies on getting along, and we've taken actual physical activity out of the public school system and we've replaced it with highly processed foods. And then you look at the blue zones and you go, these people were just eating whole foods and living a long time. You know the two things that were not variable, that ran through every blue zone in the world? Does anybody know what one of them was? Any one of them? Besides that woman and wife, I will burn your retina out. Better not be you. Literally blind you in an eye. Oh, she thinks I'm kidding. I'm gonna beep, beep, beep. What was one of the two things that was contiguous? Because it's important we talk about this. Yes, right there. What? It was, walking uphill, actually mobility until later in life. Yes, basic mobility. In fact, you're right. In Sardinia, the life expectancy was directly related to the grade of the slope. That is a fact. In fact, you had centenarians, and then you had an area in Sardinia that was hypercentenarians, and they couldn't figure it out. They had the same blood types. They had the same ancestry. They ate the same diets. And they're like, why were these people living 5 to 9 years longer? They called them hypercentenarians. And it came down to the grade of the slope, right? This is why walking is the most underrated exercise in the entire world. We don't need a fancy gym. We just need to get outside and walk. You see me walking around with that vest, guys? That's a weighted vest. I actually wear 12. The only reason I didn't wear it to this talk was last time I jumped around, it broke the microphone. On my first stage talk, I don't know if you noticed, but they brought me out a handheld. It's because I broke the earpiece jumping around with a weighted vest. But I actually wear an extra 12 pounds. I stress my body. I hormetically stress my body on purpose, because if I'm going to get 10,000 steps in a normal day anyway, I might as well add an extra 12 pounds, shave off another 600 calories a day, and stabilize my musculoskeletal system. So, and the second one, and this is a really important one. What was the second one? Anyone know? Nutrition was handled by Whole Foods. Sense of community and purpose. S. And that's what I want to talk about today, because you guys are my community and we have a common purpose. And that purpose is to help the rest of the world live healthier, happier, longer, more fulfilling lives. So that's what's exciting about today, because there is a strong message in that. And so when you also talk about, like, what are some of the basics that get us back to what God gave us and away from what man made us? And it's amazing to me how distant we become from Mother Nature. How distant we become from real human connection. In the mortality space, we knew in mortality that if you wanted to cut a human being's life expectancy in half at any age, You put them in isolation. We think about isolation as being completely alone. What's happened in society is we've become isolated in our community. We become isolated in our community because we have swapped human interaction for electronic satisfaction. And that does not feed our cellular biology. When you have a common purpose with common people and you share a common vision, and God reveals his purpose for you to you and fills you full of passion, this is one of the greatest longevity drugs that you can put into the human body. That's why it's so important for me to feed this community and for you guys to feed others, right? Because we're going to restore that human connection. There is no better connection between two human beings than when you selflessly help somebody get what they want, or you change their life because you've materially changed the health trajectory of their life, right? So the reason why I'm spending so much time on this is because that is our purpose, right? To build a community, which extends our life, that has the purpose of helping humanity live longer, healthier, happier, more fulfilling lives. And we've already checked off 2 of the most important things to extend our life, right? And we can't overlook those. And so, you know, in my previous company, we used to sell a protocol called the Superhuman Protocol. And the Superhuman Protocol was a magnetic mat called a PEMF mat, an oxygen system called EWAT, where you'd put a mask on and you'd breathe oxygen, and then a red light therapy bed. And the Superhuman Protocol cost about $120,000, right? But you know what the Superhuman Protocol was? It mimicked what we got from Mother Nature. You know, we mimicked the magnetism of the earth in a $5,000 PEMF mat. We mimicked the oxygen from the air in a $5,500 O2 bag. And we mimicked the blue and beautiful red rays from the sun in a $120,000 red light bed. So if you want to get it for free, you would take your shoes off and touch the surface of the earth. People think earthing and grounding is voodoo science. It's not. You know what? And the next time I come speak at this audience, I'm going to take a volunteer out of the audience. I'm going to put a grounding mat on the stage. And I'm going to do an exercise that I used to do in front of crowds. And I'm going to prick your finger, and I'm going to take a drop of your blood, and I'm going to put it on a microscope. And on that microscope, what you're going to see is that as your red blood cells are circulating around in your bloodstream, you will see that they become stuck together and clumped up. And the reason for this is because on the surface of your red blood cell, there's a charge. And just like a magnet, when you have 2 similar charges, these red blood cells can't touch. As soon as they get opposite charges, they attract and they stick together. And everywhere that they touch, you lose surface area. And everywhere you lose surface area, that cell cannot exchange with its outside environment. It can't eliminate waste. It can't repair. It can't detoxify. It can't regenerate. They call it rouleau, and it gets really bad. It looks like a stacked roll of quarters. So think about a stacked roll of quarters and the surface area that has in contact with its outside environment. The sides of that cylinder and the top. If you took that roll of quarters and you threw it on the ground and it's scattered, you'd increase the surface area by 80 times. What did you do? You separated them. So what happens when you touch the surface of the earth is what's called a low Gauss current connects with your body. This is a fact, by the way. A low Gauss current connects with your body, and it repolarizes the surface of these cells. And so what I'll do is I'll take you from a non-grounded environment and I'll show your blood to the audience. It's called dark field. We'll put it up here on a microscope. I got 3 of them at the house. Yes, I have 3 microscopes at the house. That's where stuff's gone for my wife and I, yeah. I got a hyperbaric chamber in my bedroom now. I'm turning my gym into a hyperbaric chamber. It's getting a little silly. My wife's kind of getting over my biohacking habit. We're having to push kids out of the house to make room for biohacking stuff. But so I take this microscope, I put your finger on there, you see how your red blood cells are all stuck together and clumped up. And then what I would do is I would either have you go outside and touch the surface of the earth for about 6 minutes, or I'd lay you on stage on a PEMF mat. Same thing. One costs $0, one costs $5,000. And then I would check your blood 15 minutes after you got off that mat, and in real time I would show the audience how all of your red blood cells were just free floating and slithering around, and all that surface area had opened up again. That's the low Gauss magnetism that we get from the earth. It is very real. And then we talk about the light that we get from the sun. We have been taught to fear the sun. But if you were to actually chart the parabolic rise in skin cancer with the parabolic use of sunscreen, you would see that these are actually superimposable, right? 23 brands of sunscreen have been removed from the market since 2018 for directly causing skin cancer. And we've been taught to fear the sun. You know what causes skin cancer? Inflammation on the surface of our skin. The sun doesn't actually cause the cancer. The UVA and UVB rays activate inflammation that is trapped in the surface of our skin. And so, skin cancer in the 50s was a fraction of what it is now. And even though we've had this parabolic rise in sunscreen use, we've had this parabolic rise in skin cancer. So if you're actually worried about exposing your skin to the sun, do it during first light. God gives us an hour in the morning as the sun crests the horizon. It gives us 1 hour where there's no UVA and there's no UVB rays. There's only beautiful blue rays from the sun, the kind of rays that create vitamin D3. They pass through your skin. But what happens when light passes through your skin? You see, I think we've forgotten what photovoltaic beings we are. When you lay in a red light bed, $120,000 red light bed, something really fascinating happens. That red light passes through your skin. When it gets inside of your cell, it goes through the wall of your cell, and it goes into a little organelle called the mitochondria. How many of you know what a mitochondria is? Not you, smarty pants. Shay's like, yeah, I know exactly. I know all 4 stages of the Krebs cycle. Nicotinamide, adenine, dinucleotide. Yeah, aerobic respiration, anaerobic respiration, ATP, adenosine triphosphate. So it passes through the wall of the mitochondria, and when the light passes through the wall of the mitochondria, it kicks out a gas, right? It kicks out a gas called nitric oxide, and that gas leaves, and when that gas leaves, oxygen docks. You see, in the mitochondria, there's a little one-armed man, and he can either shake hands with nitric oxide or he can shake hands with oxygen. If he's shaking hands with nitric oxide, he can't hold on to oxygen. The difference between whether he grabs oxygen, it's called cytochrome C oxidase, by the way. You don't need to know that. I just want you to know I'm smart. If he grabs nitric oxide, he can't grab oxygen. But if he does grab oxygen, you get a 16-fold step up in cellular energy. You actually create 36 ATP instead of 2 ATP. That's why I say that the presence of oxygen is the absence of disease. Remember I was going to tell you how we get more oxygen? Well, one way is to breathe. The other is to actually expose your skin to sunlight in the morning. Why? Because those same rays in a $120,000 red light bed, God gives them to us every single day for free. He deletes all the UVA and the UVB for those of you that are worried about skin cancer, and he actually allows those rays to hit your skin, and when they do, they will kick out that gas, nitric oxide, and they will force oxygen into the mitochondria. Light is medicine. It's medicine. The earth is medicine. And then the last thing I do is I talk very often about breath work, because I read a statistic. I don't know if it's true. I didn't see the clinical study behind it. And at some point, I'm going to really go down the rabbit hole and look this up. But whether it's true or not, it's very emblematic of what we see in society. And it says that after the age of 30, 90% of human beings will never sprint again. So after our 30th birthday, we won't actually break out into a dead sprint like we did when we were kids, or we were playing high school sports, or maybe you played collegiate sports. Think about the last time you actually broke out into a dead sprint. The reason why that's important is not just for your physical fitness, it's for your respiratory fitness. Because you know what happens when you sprint? You consciously overtake your breathing, and you breathe like this. You use what's called your intercostals, your auxiliary muscles of respiration. The older we get, the less we use these, the weaker they become, the more shallow our breathing, the lower our oxidative state, the more the breathing moves from the lobes of our lungs to the apex of our lungs, and we slowly suffocate to death over a long period of time. Hypoxia is a predictable curve. You are either using oxygen well in your body, or you are using it poorly. The more shallow you breathe, the less oxygen in your blood, the more carbon dioxide in your blood. The less oxygen you have, the more prone you are to all forms of disease and pathology, because the body needs energy to fight. And oxygen is energy because it creates the only molecule that human beings run on, which is called ATP. Yes. Adenosine triphosphate. You see, none of us eat to feed ourselves. Whatever you ate for lunch today, not a single thing you put in your mouth can be used in any form of energy in the body. Nothing you ate fed you. The only reason why you ate was to feed your gut bacteria. And your gut bacteria ate to feed you. There's an intermediary between us, what we eat and what we can absorb and what we can use as nutrients. That is a fact. When you swallow that piece of chicken, that protein did nothing for you until your gut bacteria broke it down into individual amino acids. It left the luminal area of your gut, entered your bloodstream as amino acids, and built all of the structures in your body. Built your bones, it built your skin, your hair, your skin, your nails, and it built your muscles. Yes, sir?
Is CoQ10 very important for ATP?
CoQ10 is very important for ATP, and so is something called ubiquinol. Right? Some people actually have a gene mutation that they have a hard time converting CoQ10 into ubiquinol. The ubiquinol is a great version of CoQ10, way more bioavailable. But yes, it is. It's important for ATP. So my point is, if we want to develop a starting point, like people ask me all the time, Gary, like where do I start on this health journey? Before we even talk about supplements and everything else, and we're going to talk about that, we're going to go down the rabbit hole. Where do I start? I go, you start by getting back to the basics. Right? That's where you start. You start eating whole foods. If you don't understand the label, then don't eat it. If your great-grandmother wouldn't recognize it, don't put it in your mouth. Really easy. You start by eating whole foods. You start by making mobility non-negotiable. The reason why 82% of all autoimmune disease in this country is found in women are because women have a tendency to be more selfless. They actually have a tendency to put other people's needs before themselves because they were meant to bear children. It is actually a characteristic, it's a trait of women to put themselves in the back seat, to think that self-care is selfish. And what they do is they make these micro decisions over and over and over throughout their lifetime. I'm going to serve my spouse. I'm going to serve my kids. I got to get my kids to school. I'm just going to skip my workout this morning. And then eventually what happens is they find themselves so far in the back seat that they actually are succumbed to 82% of all of the autoimmune disease in the country. This is fixable, right? So a couple things. We eat a whole food diet. We start reconnecting with Mother Nature in very simple ways, taking our shoes off, touching the surface of the earth, going out in the morning and getting morning light, horizon gazing, letting natural light get into our eyes. You know what natural light does when it passes through your eyes? Regulates your cortisol receptors, drops your melatonin, resets your circadian rhythm. You see, we've gotten so disconnected from our circadian rhythm. Circadian rhythm disorder and sleep disorder is sucking the life out of humanity. We all know that sleep is important, but nobody can really answer the question why. Like, what happens during sleep that's so important? Sleep is our human superpower. Two things happen when you sleep. During deep sleep, one phase of sleep, a very special part of your brain becomes active. It's called the glymphatic system. We have lymph nodes in our body and in our neck, you know, when your lymph nodes swell when you get a sore throat. The lymph system is a static system. The only way that it moves is by contracting your muscles, which is why walking is so healthy, because walking will circulate your lymphatic system and it will remove waste from your body. But in the brain, it's called the glymphatic system. It turns on one time during the day, during deep sleep. And what happens when it switches on? When it switches on, the brain eliminates waste. It repairs. It detoxifies. It regenerates. And by eliminate waste, I don't mean stool and urine. I mean cellular waste from your brain is eliminated during deep sleep. During REM sleep, you take all of the activities, the conscious activities that you had during the day. My stage talk, for example. And if you're inspired by the stage talk and you're thinking, man, I really want to remember that, or I want to write it down, I want to tell it to somebody tomorrow, what will happen is the information that I gave you today, when you go to sleep tonight, it will plug in with your subconscious during REM sleep, not while you're conscious and awake, during that phase of sleep. So if you're getting too little of that phase of sleep, your short-term memory starts to go, and you start walking around with brain fog, and you go to the doctor and tell him you got brain fog, and the next thing you know, you're on an SSRI or you're on a sleep tranquilitic. We don't need those things, right? We just need to develop good sleep hygiene. So that's another one of the things I'm going to teach you. I did an incredible sleep challenge. Did anybody participate in my sleep challenge? Well, it was a really successful challenge. Great. Nobody? All right. Awesome. All right. Thank God I have a lot of other fans outside this room. I'd be broke. Yeah. Was there one?
There's people, Gary. There's people waiting all outside for the next segment. Personal audience for Gary Brecka, guys.
Yeah. Thank you.
Personal audience.
Really? That's amazing.
I don't know.
Thank you, man.
All the way back, and then people out here just personal audience.
Thank you. Thank you. I know this might be boring, because it's not as exciting maybe as my last. Okay. Thank you. But this is, we're missing the obvious, right? It's just shooting by us, right? And we want to be up here in the exotics, in the leaves. We got to be down into the roots, the nutrients, right? My analogy of the leaf rotting in the tree, we don't treat the leaf, we treat the soil. You put the nitrogen in the soil, the leaf heals. Human beings are the same way. And the way that we heal is we first get back to the basics. Once you got the basics covered, now we build a pathway to optimal health, right? You cannot diet your way around poor sleep. You can't exercise your way around a poor diet. And so that's where we start. And what I'm hoping to do with you guys through this VIP community is build a root foundation that is so unshakable and strong that we can actually build a temple above it, right? And the temple I'm talking about is the one that you're looking, well, not me particularly, just a metaphor, but is your temple. Right? Because I want us to start thinking about this as a temple. I want us to treat it like a temple. Don't let thieves in here. Let things that are going to serve us into our temple. And then it begins to serve you in ways that you couldn't imagine. People are like baffled sometimes when I do 9 cities in 11 days with my wife. And they're on opposite sides of the world. And I do 6 or 7 cities in the U.S. And then I hop a plane and I go 15 hours to Dubai. And then I go, Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. And I do 15 hours back. If you've ever followed me on social media, you're not even showing up to my challenges, so you didn't follow that one. And I post my sleep scores and they're like 96, 98%, 99%, 100%. That's because I prioritize those things. I schedule meetings and travel around sleep and exercise, right? I don't schedule sleep and exercise around meetings and travel. You know what the most bullied thing is in most of your schedules? You know what the stepchild is in your day? Sleep. You push it around because it's the easiest thing to manipulate in your schedule. Everything else should come to a stop and your sleep should dictate your day. Not allow your day to dictate your sleep. And so I'm going to give you a little tip this week. What I want you to do when we leave here after you're home from this conference, for 7 days, I want you to do 2 things. I want you to get all the folic acid out of your diet. Any food that is fortified or enriched, I want you to do 1 week, just stop eating it. Spin your box of crackers and everything else around. If it says fortified or enriched, don't eat it. You can get the organic version of those. The second thing I want you to do is I want you to set an alarm on your phone 15 minutes before the time you promise yourself you're going to go to bed. So if you say I'm going to go to bed at 10:30, set an alarm for 10:15 and get your ass in bed at 10:30. Keep the promise you made to yourself, because the little tiny promises we break to ourselves, that's what erodes our self-confidence. And when we start losing confidence in our ability to subconsciously trust ourselves, nothing else matters. And so you can begin to rebuild that self-confidence by beginning to trust yourself, by listening to the voice, the voice that only you hear. It's not like you told your spouse you were going to go to bed 10:30 and then you went to bed at 11. You just never told them when you were going to go to bed. But mentally you did, and you lied to yourself, right? So get used to depending on yourself. So do that 15 minutes before. Go to bed at the same time every night. Do these 5 things before you go to bed. You ready? Because if you had participated in my sleep challenge, which none of you did, which is why I hope you're all sleeping like hell, right? I hope all of you get terrible night's sleep. No, but if you were on this sleep challenge, it was so fascinating, because none of what I'm about to tell you is going to cost you a penny. I had so many people join this challenge that Whoop actually co-sponsored it with me, and they sent thousands and thousands of these Whoop bands out to people, and I developed a baseline. And I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. First of all, I'm just going to bring your awareness to sleep. Because if I say, hey, what do you do to go to sleep? Most people say, I get in bed. I go, well, what time do you go to bed? Well, whenever I get there. What kind of sleep hygiene do you have? What's your sleep routine? I don't have a sleep routine. Well, you have a routine for your business. You have a routine to exercise. You got a routine to get your kids to school. You don't have a routine for your own human superpower? Okay, so let's develop one. So here's what I do. There's 5 things that I do. Number 1, if you're a ruminator, if you're one of those people that lays down to go to bed at night and your mind is awake but your body is tired, okay? First of all, I want you to add extra magnesium at night. That helps break down thought. But if you're a ruminator, I want you to do this. I want you to take a contrast shower. Step into the shower when it's warm, turn it as hot as it will go, let it run on the back of your spine, step out of that stream of water, turn it as cold as it will go, step back into the stream of water and deal with it. Just deal with it for 30 seconds. I lost half of you right there. Aging is the aggressive pursuit of comfort, guys. So let's not fall into that trap. All right, we pursue comfort so aggressively that we accelerate aging. Step back into that stream of water for 30 seconds, shut the water off, and towel off. Why? Because it's going to break the catecholamine cycle in your brain. The 30 seconds to a minute as hot as you can stand it, and then 30 seconds as cold as you can stand it. What's that? Okay, and I'm going to get to Q&A. And then the second thing I want you to do is chill the room down as cold as you can stand it, 65 to 69 degrees. Invest in a $10 sleep mask, or surgically remove every ounce of light from the room. And by that I mean throw a towel over your alarm clock on the nightstand, close your drapes like a surgeon, like the light's going to kill you because it takes so little cortisol to raise it. And then when you get in bed, turn your phone off and lay in bed and do this breathing technique. 10 seconds in through your nose. Pause for 3 seconds and go out through a straw. And see if you make it to 10 breaths. And you will have the best night's sleep that you've had. Okay, I want to open it to questions. I also wanted to spend about 30 more seconds on H2 tabs, because if you missed me talking about the launch of this, guys, this product is going to change your life and the life of the people that you recommend this to. Because you saw my little ORP water test, right, when we were up there. I encourage you, if you want to actually sell these tabs or you want to show people that they work, get one of these $6 meters off of Amazon and show them that that water is going from 165 to about a negative 300 in 10 seconds, which means you are dropping the inflammation in your body. Dee, do you have a question back there? You're about ready to fire up the mic?
We're going to fire up this mic. Okay, who's got a question? Laura Lynn? I'm going to hold this because I know a little about you, young lady.
Okay, so does the hydrogen dissipate? Like once you put it in the water, how long does it stay in the water?
Oh, so it will take 50 seconds to dissolve. The sooner you drink it, the better, but it will last for about 50 minutes to an hour, right? So what happens is the larger bubbles will leave first, the micro bubbles will stay in there a lot longer, right? This is actually making nanobubbles of hydrogen gas. The reason why you actually can't see the bubbles and it looks just very cloudy, I don't know if you can see this, but there's actually a little bit of smoke coming out of the top of that. So there is actually hydrogen gas escaping from that, which is perfectly harmless for you. But if you drink this while it's cloudy with your isotonics in it, you will feel those hit your bloodstream. Who's next?
Next question is over here.
Right.
First of all, Gary, thank you for everything. Appreciate it.
You're so
there's
welcome.
a lot of supplements out there.
We're just getting started too, brother.
There's a lot of things out there, a lot of supplements. Do you recommend a blood test or a DNA test to figure out what's right for you?
At minimum, I recommend a blood test. And here's why I recommend a blood test, because the blood will change, DNA won't. You can also do a DNA test for what you're deficient in. When you look at a blood, you should look at 5 things, okay? These are the general categories you want to look at. You want to look at hormone balance, nutrient deficiencies, blood sugar control, what's called a lipid panel, and a full hormone profile. Reason why I say to look at those is because generally what happens in people that have low hormones that are causing all kinds of issues is they're actually not low on the ability to make the hormone, they're low on the nutrients needed for the body to build it. So in other words, if you're deficient in DHEA or vitamin D3, you will be low on hormones. If you have too much of something called SHBG in your blood and not enough boron, you will actually have low levels of certain hormones in your blood. Which it's astounding to me how many deficiencies in nutrients and minerals and vitamins and amino acids in the body express themselves as conditions like hormone imbalance. So I hope I answered your question, but yeah. How do you order that blood? Any primary care doctor should be able to do that for you. CBC, CNP, Comprehensive Metabolic Panel, complete blood count, hormones, lipids, nutrient deficiencies. So I don't know where the microphone is, but whoever's... Who's passing the microphone? Yes, ma'am, in the yellow. Where is the microphone? Nobody can hear you. Oh, it's over there. Okay, so ask that, and then we'll bring it over here.
Hi, Gary.
Hey.
My name's Joe Pontak, and I have a question for you. I was diagnosed with arthritis in my shoulder and rheumatoid arthritis, and they told me I would have to have a shoulder replacement. So it's a double-sided question. First off, I stopped going to the doctor about 6-7 months ago. I completely stopped because I read about cortisone. I listened to you about the whole cortisone shots, and you said six years to the day, I can tell you when you're going to have a replacement. And I just stopped. I said, screw it, I'm done. So can I get a replacement? Can I fix what damage has been done with the cortisone? And then what do I do going forward with the arthritis?
Okay, so first of all, if we talk about rheumatoid arthritis, which is an autoimmune disease, and for the record, let's talk about rheumatoid arthritis for a moment, which is called an autoimmune disease. And just for the record, as a matter of disclaimer, I am not a physician. Right? I am not licensed to practice medicine, so I don't want to be misconstrued as giving medical advice. But I will give you physiology advice, right, in terms of how the body works. Anytime we have an autoimmune condition, again, like I said from the stage earlier, the first thing that we assume that the immune system has made a mistake. I want us to first take a step back from that. So it didn't matter that you said rheumatoid, it wouldn't matter what autoimmune case you had, so I'm going to answer a broader question, but it will answer yours as well. Is we should ask ourselves, why is the immune system attacking that tissue? Why is it after the colon? Why is it after the thyroid? Why did it just pick the left shoulder one day? Right? The immune system is just running around like, I'm bored, Stan. There's a shoulder joint. Why don't we jump him? Right? And then they just jumped the shoulder joint. They didn't jump any other joints, they just jumped that one. So the point is, what could be happening here that's not happening anywhere else? And the answer is this. It is usually, next time maybe I can get a lavalier. And the answer is mold, mycotoxin, metals, and viruses. Write those down. Mold, mycotoxin, metals, viruses, and occasionally parasites. Those are the 4 invaders that hide around the body, and the immune system chases them. I've known people that have had chronic Lyme for decades, right? Because Lyme disease doesn't just stand in the bloodstream and wait for criminals don't come out during the daylight, right? They go into the dark alleys. They go for the cars that are open. They smash windows when nobody's looking. Viruses are the same way. They don't just stand around, waving their hand at the immune system. They hide. They hide in areas like the dorsal root ganglion. So we need to find them, and there are tests that you can do for these, and you get those pathogens out of the body, and then the body heals. When heavy metals get embedded in the thyroid, which we call Hashimoto's, when heavy metals get embedded in the thyroid, the immune system will chase the heavy metals into that gland. Just like if somebody robbed the bank and ran into that door right here and locked the door, the police would bust that door down. Not because they're trying to destroy the door, but they're chasing the offender. And then when they came in here, if in the act of chasing that offender, a couple of you got hurt and bruised and innocent people got knocked over and all this inflammation started, this is what happens with the immune system. The immune system's vigilant, right? It'll break down the cell wall by manufacturing an antibody. It will go in there and start a bar fight, and you will have inflammation in all of these conditions. And then we want to hold the cop responsible for the bank robber, right? We're like, why don't we punish the police for breaking the door? Right? This is what we do in I'm just giving you this metaphor because I want you to have faith that maybe your immune system didn't make a mistake, and maybe you actually have a pathogen, and we should go help the immune system find it and get it out.
Over here, Gary.
Yes. Got time for 1 or 2 more? Yeah.
Gary. Hello.
I cannot tell where your voice is coming from. It's like, okay, there you are. People are like, Gary. Gary, it's coming out of here. I see you now. I don't see you. Oh, there you are. And I got these lights in my face. Yeah.
So I have a question. I deal with a lot of women who are in menopause and dealing with hair loss.
Yes.
And
okay.
I don't have an answer for them.
Yeah. So let's. That's called diffuse alopecia, and so what are some of the causes of diffuse alopecia? First of all, in menopause, this is a misnomer about female menopause. You actually still have a cycle. It's just that the amplitude is lower, right? This is probably the most important piece of advice that I can give you, and it's not medical advice. You may want to write this down. In women, especially menopausal women, it is not the level of hormones that's important. It is the ratio of hormones that is important. It is the ratio of hormones to one another. You know, women have certain ratios that need to be maintained in their hormones. So, for example, if you are a premenopausal, if you're a menstruating woman, it's perfectly normal for your estrogen to be 400. It's perfectly normal for it to be 13. Who's to say the 172 or 224 or 96 is high or low? You don't know. You have to look at its ratio to other hormones. Because especially in women, as hormones get out of ratio, they express different characteristics. One of the most common is estrogen dominance. And it doesn't mean estrogen's too high, it means estrogen is too much more than the other hormones, like progesterone. So for example, in a man, if you have a testosterone level of 800 and your estrogen is 90, no problem. If you have a testosterone of 200 and your estrogen is 90, huge problem. You're crying at children's movies. You can't even make it through Bambi, right? Same levels, different ratios, right? So I would do something called a Dutch test. Yes, ma'am. And please don't just shout my name. Wave. Let me know where the microphone is. Oh, I hear it. I have a question. Yes. Guys, I really pray that you have signed up for this VIP community. For the love of God, at least the first month, because it's free. Because we're going to do a lot more of just this. And the fact that you guys are so receptive to this, like I feel like I could just talk to you guys all day. I really do. I've got endless energy for this. Are you guys getting value out of this? Oh my God. I love you guys, man. I really do. Come on, give me a little skin there. Come on. I love you guys. I love this crowd. Woo! We're only just getting started, boys. We just lit this fire. Am I right? Come on, dog. I love it. All right. My little science spirit animals unite. All right, who's got the microphone?
So I've got a question over here. After this, we've got one more question,
Okay,
and then we're going to let Gary get prepared for his next lecture. So I'm going to have everyone here. We're going to get prepared to change the room over. We got
Okay.
2 more questions.
Beautiful.
Thanks, Gary. My name is Naima. I'm from Syracuse, New York. I recently watched one of your super dope interviews on Diary of a CEO.
Yeah.
And in the interview, you were drinking hydrogen water from a device.
Yes.
And while I'm much more receptive to a tablet and water, what's your opinion on the devices? Do you still use them? And what are your recommendations?
Yeah, so here's the issue that I had with the device. I've always been a huge fan of hydrogen water, but I got a lot of flack online because I am intentionally trying to message to the masses. If you notice, nearly everything that I talked about today is certainly not something that I sell, because I find that when you do this whole thing, like go to www.soandso.com/Gary20 for a discount, and you start trying to monetize everything. It takes the authenticity out of the message, and so thank you. And so these bottles were $275, $300, and they had proton exchange membranes that I found out would break down after a few months. So when you bought it, you would get 5 or 6 parts per million, and then 3, 4, 5 months later, after spending $300, you're getting 1 part per million. And so I stopped messaging about those, and I began to message about H2 tabs, because that's less than $1 a day, and it will change your life. So that's where that came from. Thank you. All right, one more question, and then we'll fire it up.
Over here.
Don't do that. Do not do that. When you say over here, I hear it right there.
Over here.
Over here, right there.
Over here. All right, my name is Vicente. I have a question. I have a teenage daughter, and we're talking about health and nutrition, obviously weight loss. As I was younger growing up, I had weight issues, and as I get older, trying to work with those with younger kids. You gave us some tips or points to work on now. How would we be able to implement those or use those with the children growing and dealing with these issues?
With children?
Yes.
With children that are dealing with these issues, it's no different. The metabolism in children, although it's usually generally a little bit faster, is no different than that in adult. Just by the fact that you said teenage daughter, my first thing is sleep. And the reason why I say that is because teenagers need more sleep than adults. They actually need more sleep than little kids. we actually need to flip the public school system around so that the high schoolers go to school the latest and the grade schoolers go to school the earliest. Right? If we wanted to actually follow circadian biology, that's what we do. You ever go to the parking lot of a high school 6:30 in the morning when they're walking into class? Looks like zombies. And they got Starbucks, hair hanging down. They're in sweatpants. They've been up for maybe 7 minutes, and I'm talking from the time they woke up till they're walking across the student parking lot. And so what happens in sleep deprivation is even in children, and especially young females, it throws their hormones into a tailspin. Young menstruating women, high school age women, have estrogen dominance like you can't imagine. When you actually restore their sleep, you can even give them a supplement called DIM, D-I-M, diindolomethane, and you restore that natural balance to that hormones, then it becomes much easier to lose weight. If you're not sleeping, you're not going to lose weight. Full stop. That, Dr. D. She said her curcumin has 3-indole-carbinol, which is the precursor for diindolomethane. Wow, Dr. D getting deep. Yes, 3-indole-carbinol is the plant compound that cruciferous vegetables turn, that becomes DIM, diindolomethane. So if you have that in a supplement, you're getting right back to what I'm saying, right? Nutrient deficiencies, right? It's so amazing. Okay, was that our last question?
Last question, you guys. We want to make sure that everyone gets to experience this type of intimate setting with Gary. So you've registered for the first lecture. And so what we need to do at this point is turn this room over. I'm going to ask you to politely but quickly leave the room so that we can allow other people to come in and have the same.
Guys, thank you so much for your time. I love being on this journey with you all.